Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Long Dark. In this video, we're going to be going over 10 tips on how to survive in the long dark. So, without wasting any more time, at number 1, we have learning the region maps. As a long dark player with several thousand hours in the game, I can tell you hands down that this is the most important thing you can do when starting to play the game. Region knowledge in the long dark can really make the difference between life and death. Knowing where the safe spots are, like caves, buildings, and even transition areas, can not only be a time saver, but a lifesaver. Adequate shelter can certainly be hard to come by in the long dark if you don't know where to look. But learning maps in the game can also get you really familiar with shortcuts, wildlife spawns, and the fastest, most efficient ways to get certain things done. I'll use myself for this example. When I first started playing the Long Dark, I would always start in Mystery Lake, as it was kind of like a comfort region for myself. Trapper's Cabin in the far corner of the region was always a favorite for me, but what if I wanted to get there to the Hydro Dam at the other end of the region? Well, I would take a path similar to this, hugging the backside of the region until I hit the railroad tracks. From there, I followed them until I hit the camp office, which is where I turned right and then turned left through the southern and northern river accesses. Finally, I'd arrive at the dam. There's two main things that are wrong with this path. First of all, I could have taken a much shorter path through the other side of the region, and second, this path I took takes me through countless wildlife spawns, more than the other path would. You can see how learning the regions just by this example can make all the difference. And it's really not that hard either. There are several online maps you can pull up which basically tell you where everything can be. Just keep one open as you play, and it won't be long before you have some regions memorized. At number 2, we have collect everything in the beginning. This tip really applies to all difficulties, including as you get higher in Stalker and Interloper. In these difficulties, you don't start off with a lot of gear, so it's going to be really important to collect everything you see, including sticks, clothing, ammo, and everything in between. There will come a time when you need to drop some things because you're overweight, but by then, hopefully you will have reached a shelter and can start making some sort of base with the items you've collected. At number 3, we have keep moving. This tip is extremely important in the early game, especially on higher difficulties. If you stay in one spot in a long dark, you'll be very surprised how quickly you burn through your resources. It might be nice hanging out in a structure for a long time, but there will come a time when you need food, amongst other things. Keeping on the move in this game ensures that you will always be finding more resources, including food, clothing, and shelter across the several regions. Although this tip is not too involved, covering as much distance as you can in the first few days can really benefit you, even if you don't quite know where your destination is. At number 4, we have the crouch walk. Now, this is something that, as far as I know, only a very few people do in the long dark. The purpose of crouch walking is to speed up the time it takes to sneak around the wildlife. How it works is that you crouch down, followed by standing back up. However, right before your character fully stands back up, you crouch down again. This is because as you're in the process of standing up, the game doesn't register you as fully standing up. This makes it where you gain quite a bit of distance while the nearby wildlife thinks you're still crouched. You can repeat this process as many times as you want in your wildlife until you're in the clear. This honestly might seem like a pretty stupid tip, and it probably even looks more stupid in gameplay, but I promise this method is insanely effective. The difference between staying crouched an entire 100 meters compared to crouch walking that same distance is pretty substantial, and it might save you when you're in a pinch. At number 5, avoid travel at night. This tip definitely applies to those who don't know the region maps well. It is very easy to get lost at night in the long dark. Add in some light snow and wind, and you can kiss your sense of direction goodbye. If possible, it is always recommended to avoid travel at night for a few reasons. Obviously, you can't see as well, but there's always a chance for an aurora to occur at night. This makes wildlife incredibly more aggressive. There's been quite a few times in the long dark where I've had no choice but to travel at night, and sometimes that does happen. It's definitely a little more nerve-wracking, but it gets 10 times worse when an aurora is active. My best advice for traveling at night is you need to know the path you're taking, as well as possible wildlife that may stand in the way. Hug any corners or walls so your back is protected, and stay extremely vigilant. Sometimes you can hear the predators before you see them. At number 6, we have don't pass time until absolutely necessary. If you ever find yourself waiting for the sun to rise, or maybe waiting for something to finish cooking, try your best to find something to do in the meantime, and don't pass time. This is because there's almost always something in your inventory you can work on while you have that extra few minutes. Whether it's a clothing repair, crafting rose hips, or even breaking down sticks for tinder, that's one thing you got out of the way instead of passing time. It's a small tip, but it definitely adds up over time, and getting caught without having enough tinder is always a painful situation, so make sure you're stocked up. At number 7, we have Cattails Will Save You. This one is huge if you're struggling with food. Cattails spawn in just about every region in the game and are such an easy food source if you're struggling to hang on. Each cattail gives you about 150 calories and they never go bad, so shoving them away in a container for 45 days is an option, and it gives you a nice food supply at your base. You don't understand how much cattails have saved me in the long dark, especially on higher difficulties where that food isn't really as common. So it's nice to run through a region like Forlorn Muskeg and stock up. It definitely makes a lot of the near future worries go away. Now, this tip might seem pretty obvious, but at number 8, we have carry firewood. In the long dark, the biggest and fastest killer is by far the cold. Thus, having firewood to warm up is really a must. I would highly recommend keeping a nice stack of coal, since coal is what will warm you up the fastest. Unfortunately, firewood is pretty heavy, so try to take just enough for your journey, but not too much. Another nice thing is that sticks are extremely common on the ground, so at least you'll have that when you're out and about. At number 9, we have use teas/food to warm up. This goes off the last tip just a little bit regarding the cold, but warming up teas such as herbal and rosehip tea next to a fire is incredibly useful, as when consumed, it'll give you a nice warmth bonus. This can also be applied to certain canned foods like pinnacle peaches and tomato soup. This extra warmth allows you to keep traveling outdoors and become a little more resistant against the cold. It's a pretty basic tip, but in the higher difficulties especially, this can be a really crucial piece to survival in the long dark. Finally, at number 10, we have a night of food poisoning. This one is definitely the least important out of all the tips, but it can definitely be of use when you're low on food. In the long dark, each food has a condition, and when that condition gets low, the chance of food poisoning when consuming that item goes up. This value highly varies based on the type of food. Like with canned foods, anything below 20% condition has a chance of getting you sick. Meanwhile, with other things like soda and cattails, they can actually never go bad. Sardines, however, can get you sick very easily, as even I have gotten food poisoning off of something around 74 to 75% condition. Now, let's say you're starving and you have a lot of food in your inventory that is very low in condition. First of all, good on you for recognizing not to eat those foods. But secondly, what you can do is what I like to call a night of food poisoning. If you have a decent amount of low condition food, make sure you are very hungry right before you go to bed. Then, head into your inventory and eat all the low condition foods. Food poisoning does not stack and requires 10 hours of rest regardless. With that said, whether you eat one 5% tin of sardines or 20, you'll still have a 10-hour recovery regardless. Now, if you do get food poisoning with this strategy, please be sure to have antibiotics on you so you can recover. There's been quite a few times where I've slept and forgot about the medicine after getting food poisoning and I died by the morning. So, yeah, don't do that if you can't. This tip is pretty small, but there's been situations where it has helped me tremendously. And there we have it 10 pretty quick tips to help you survive in the long dark. Now, some of these tips are definitely more useful than others, hence why they were in kind of that 1 to 10 ranking almost, but they should all help you get by the first few weeks if you're new. And I do want to say before I sign off that if you're in the new stage of the long dark and you're looking for tips to help you survive, definitely enjoy learning the game. I remember when I first started trying to navigate around Broken Railroad and Timberwolf Mountain, it was so rewarding finding my way, and then killing your first bear was quite the feeling. So please enjoy this stage of the game because it'll be gone pretty quickly once you start replaying the same maps over and over. You'll kind of lose that magic of being a new player. And if you're looking for a nice, long, dark playthrough or maybe some intense challenges within the game, then you are in the right place. I have several playlists going back a few years of a ton of long, dark content, so feel free to get lost in the playlists. And as always, if you made it this far, thanks so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I hope to see you all in the next episode.